let's be real, we knew from the second he was introduced and caught up that Monty is a real man. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faith and thank you so much for watching. In honor of it being In Her Own League's release week, I thought we would go ahead and do a deep dive on the entire Windy City series. And yes, I know technically this isn't a Windy City series book, but it's a spin-off, so like technically it is. So basically, I will be including this book in the deep dive. And before we get into things, I gotta say, this video will contain spoilers for every single book in the series. I'm filming this video on March 4th, so for me, In Her Own League was just released yesterday, and I finished it yesterday. So, suffice to say, I really liked it. For this deep dive, I'm going to talk about each one of these books and kind of give my thoughts on each one. And I'm also going to rank the series, including In Her Own League, at the end of this video. But first, I would like to touch on my journey with these books. As you can see, I have the original covers and I love them. I think they are so pretty. I first heard of the series a while ago. I think it was around the time that Play Along was coming out, if I remember correctly. However, I actually didn't read them until just a couple months ago. Sometime in 2025, Liz Tom 40 announced that this series was going to be traditionally published, and because of that, the covers would be changing and the indie covers would be going out of print. At that point, I knew that I had wanted to read the series, I just hadn't got around to it yet. I like the new covers, I think they're cute, so at the time she announced that, I was kind of up in the air on whether I should read them now or if I should wait until after the new covers are in print and just get those covers. But then I thought about it some more and I was like, you know what? I like these covers. I think they're pretty and I think they have just this cute charm to them. Unfortunately, by the time I decided that I wanted those covers, I could not find them anywhere. Until one day when I was out shopping with my mom and we were like, hey, let's go to the bookstore. Even though I was on a book buying ban, so in my head I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go in and look, and you know what? I should have known better because I have never just went in and looked. But anyways, we go in there and I see the original covers for each book and I was like, I have to get those. And as you can see, I did. Even though I got them in October, they weren't super high on my priority list. I knew I just wanted to read them before In Her Own League came out. So I didn't actually start the series until the end of December, and then at the end of December I read the first 3 books. And then books 4 and 5 were actually my first 2 reads of 2026. And then obviously, like I said, I finished this on release day. So in case it's not clear, I love this series. I get the hype and honestly I love it so much I'm gonna go ahead and say that it deserves more. But now let's go ahead and talk about each book. To start the series, we have Mile High. With the way I see some people talk about this book, I was expecting to read this book and have to like force myself to continue the series. Unlike a lot of people, I will not continue a series if I didn't like book 1. So I was just really scared that I wouldn't like it after I had already bought the entire series. But luckily I read this and I think y'all are crazy for hating it. I love it. This book is pretty long and there are definitely chapters that don't drive the story along at all. So when people say they don't like it due to the length, honestly, I can understand that. However, I will not accept Xander's and Stevie hate. I love them and I think they are so cute together. I often find myself saying that I don't really like the whole reformed playboy trope, but then every book I read with reformed playboy, I enjoy. So it's like, in theory, I don't like it, and for you to make me like it, it has to be good. So when I say I like this book and Xander's, that means it's good. I'm kind of torn on whether I think this book would have hit harder if it wasn't the first book in the series. Let's say that this was book 3 in the series instead of 1. I do think that him going from playboy to being in love with Stevie could have hit harder if we got a couple books of him being a playboy. But then at the same time, I don't really want to read about a couple where I just saw the guy be a whore for 2 books. So even though in theory it could have hit harder, I am glad that it was first because we see less of him being a man whore. Hockey is also my favorite type of sports romance, so it gets bonus points for that. Really, I just love this book, and hate for it is not accepted here. And then we have The Right Move, which I have learned I have pretty unpopular opinions about. Do not get me wrong, I love this book, okay? However, of all the FMCs, I definitely connected to Indy the least. I feel like there's nothing that I really relate to her about. And obviously, you're not gonna relate to every single character that you read about. However, I do relate a lot to every other FMC in this series. So I do think that is part of the reason that I don't really connect with her as much as the others. But do not twist my words, I still like her. And I love Ryan. I love how once he started liking Indy, he was obsessed. And if you've been around here for a while, you probably know that my favorite trait in an MMC is when he is obsessed with her. But even though I like the characters. I do have one pretty big issue with this book. I really did not like how they both have past relationship trauma. But once we learn of Ryan's, Indy's just becomes irrelevant and doesn't matter at all. And that is not me saying that Ryan thought that he had it worse. That is me saying that once we learn about what happened to Ryan in the past, Indy's past relationship is just like completely dropped from the story, and I really didn't like that. I just feel like Indy's past relationship started off as a major plot point and then just fizzled out with a very unsatisfying conclusion. Like, the last time we really hear about her ex is when he showed up at the end of a game, and that's from Ryan's point of view, and he literally leaves them, so we never get their conversation from Indy's point of view. And afterwards, Indy never really thinks about it, so we never hear any of it from her point of view, and then when Ryan asks her about it, it is like a very, very short conversation. And at that point, it's all focused on Ryan's past relationship issues. They both have reasons to have relationship issues, and I really just don't like how hers was diminished for the last half of this book. But I still think they're a really cute couple, and I love them, and I did still really like this book. And then we have Kai and Miller's story caught up. I was kind of worried going into this one because I think single parent romances are very easy to do incorrectly, but luckily I think this one was done very well. Miller not only loved Kai, but she also loved Kai's son, Max. I love the parallel between Miller and Monty's relationship and Max and Miller's relationship. Miller spent pretty much her entire life feeling guilty and feeling like she owed Monty for giving up his career to parent her. And of course we learned that Monty never felt any sort of resentment towards Miller at all. We learn about it a little bit more in Her Own League, but yeah, Monty was of course upset to leave his career as a baseball player behind, but he was thrilled and scared, obviously, to be Miller's father. And then with Miller and Max, Miller was on this path of being this big shot baker, and she's going through a burnout, and this entire book she spends trying to figure out why that is and how to get that spark back. And Kai and Max help her get that spark back, and she gives up her nomadic lifestyle to be with Kai and Max. Monty and Miller both gave up their careers to parent a child that biologically wasn't theirs, but it was still their kid. And I love Kai and Miller, but I just love that parallel so much. Yes, it's a romance book, so it's about the couple, but one person in that couple has a kid, so obviously it's also going to be about the kid. And I can't talk about this book without adding, I really wish Brian got beat up. Him going to Miller and saying, at least you're doing something impressive with your life since your dad gave up his. The audacity. Thankfully, Isaiah was there and was like, what the hell is wrong with you? But I love you, Isaiah. That was not enough for me. I need him to get beat up. I was holding out hope it would happen in Her Own League, but I'm here to report it sadly did not. Other than Brian not getting beat up, I loved this book. And then we have Isaiah and Kennedy in Play Along. I love this book so much, and I'm pretty sure it's most people's favorite book in the series. So going in, I was really, really scared that it wouldn't live up to the hype, but it did. And not only did it, I think it exceeded the hype. Of every FMC in the series, I definitely relate to Kennedy the most. And I don't really think I have a type, but if I did, it would be Isaiah Rhodes. So you know what? Maybe I do, and it's just him. So I'm sorry to literally everybody else. Liz Tomforty did actually write this book just for me. It takes a lot for me to cry at a romance book about something that's not like death, and this book made me cry 3 times. As we know, Isaiah loves Kennedy's hair, specifically the color of her hair. So when we learned that Isaiah was colorblind, I cried. I cried because what do you mean he can't even see the color and he loves it just because it's a part of her? I also cried when he gave her the divorce papers because the things that he was saying to her is like the ideal man. As we know, her family is trash, and she was actually like set up to be married, like an arranged marriage. And so Isaiah gave her the divorce papers and was like, I know you never wanted this and you've never had a choice in your own life, and I will not take that from you. But then he's also like, if you want to be with me, take this huge career opportunity for you in San Francisco and I will switch teams to be with you. And then I also cried at the end when she got him those glasses for colorblind people that allow them to see color, and then he finally saw the color of her hair. Isaiah Rhodes really is the standard. So in case it's not obvious, I'm obsessed with this book and Isaiah Rhodes. Also, like I said, this was my first read of 2026, and so I read it right after the Stranger Things finale, and the cover of this book is purple and it's raining in the back. Purple Rain, if you know, you know, that scene will haunt me until the day that I die. And then we have technically the last book in the series, Rewind It Back. I have loved Rio since we met him in book 1. Rio is a lover boy through and through, and I loved seeing him in those previous 4 books just yearn for the kind of relationships that those couples had. And because I love Rio so much, I had very high expectations for this book, and they were met. Him being a lover boy, and then throughout this book realizing that he cannot love anybody but his first love, Hallie, was just perfect. This book also has some things that I'm just not a really big fan of in general, so I'm surprised that I liked it as much as I did. This book is second chance romance, and honestly, I don't really like second chance romances, and I won't read it unless it's part of a series like this one was, or if it's from an auto by author. And I'm also not a fan of flashbacks. Thankfully, there weren't that many in this book, and I do think they all fit in with the story very well. My one complaint about this book is that I don't like how Hallie's mom was villainized significantly more than Rio's dad. In case you don't remember, Hallie's mom and Rio's dad had an affair. Besides like one conversation that Rio has with his dad and a few offhand comments here and there, there's like zero blame placed on his dad. Rio's mom hated Hallie because Hallie found out about the affair a couple weeks before it came out to everybody. And I feel like Rio's mom hated Hallie more than she hated her husband for cheating on her. I get in the moment you're not thinking rationally at all, and you can't really imagine how your husband of all people has done this to you, but like a decade later, give or take a little bit, you're still hating on Hallie more than your husband. No, ma'am. They both cheated on their spouses with each other. Sure, I think Hallie's mom could have been villainized a little bit more just because of what she said with Hallie about being like, oh, imagine what this will do to your father, because her father was sick at the time. But even then, it should have been like a minuscule amount of extra hate and not a significant amount. Thankfully, her hatred of Hallie does get resolved, and Rio and Hallie are just perfect for each other. I also was kind of worried that at the end of this book, it would focus more on the series ending as a whole and not really focus on a proper epilogue for Rio and Hallie. But thankfully, Rio and Hallie got a proper ending to their story. It's only really the last page or two of the epilogue that focuses on the series as a whole ending, and honestly, I do think it was wrapped up perfectly. It's from Rio's perspective, and it's him looking at every single main character in the series and acknowledging their character growth, and it was just the perfect ending. And then of course we have the spin-off for the series, In Her Own League. And as I'm sure most of you know, it follows Monty, or Emmett, who is Miller's dad, and Reese, who is the new owner for the Windy City Warriors baseball team, which is Kai and Isaiah's baseball team. Technically in this book, Kai doesn't play for the team, he is an assistant coach or something like that, but it's still their baseball team. I loved Monty in Caught Up and Play Along, so I loved seeing him get his happily ever after. Misogyny in the sports world is a huge focus of this book, and I honestly really like how it was handled. Reese is a baddie and doesn't take crap from anybody, and all of the misogynists get what was coming to them. Low-key, that's the real happily ever after of this book. This book starts with Emmett and Reese not liking each other at all, and the tension is crazy. Their relationship starts with mutual dislike and then goes into more of reluctant allies, into, I guess you could say, friends, into lovers. Honestly, I do wish that they stayed in that mutual dislike phase a little bit longer. I feel like they got out of that pretty quickly because, like I said, the tension when they didn't like each other, perfect. I love how Reese didn't let anybody walk over her, and Monty knew that she could defend herself, but he was always right there behind her, ready to jump in if she needed it. I think it'd be funny to sit here and be like, Monty, I didn't know I had it in you, but I did. Like, let's be real. We knew from the second he was introduced and Caught Up that Monty is a real man, and I loved seeing it in this book. I also really liked that Miller, Kai, and Max, and Isaiah and Kennedy played a pretty big role in this book. In Caught Up and Play Along, we know how important Monty is to all of those characters, so I'm really glad that in this book we saw that they were also insanely important to him. Overall, to no surprise, I loved this book. And now I'm gonna give you my ranking of the series, including In Her Own League. And before I do, I'm just gonna ask you to hear me out, because after posting my ranking on TikTok, I learned that my last place pick is very unpopular to put last. So just hear me out. In last place, The Right Move. I apologize. I gave this book 4.5 stars, and it is the only book in the entire series that I didn't give 5 stars. Even though I love them as a couple, like I said, out of all the FMCs, I connected with Indy the least. And I just really don't like how her relationship issues are completely diminished as soon as we learn about his. Even though it is at the bottom, I still love this book. Something had to be last, guys. And in 5th place, we have Mile High. I definitely love this book a lot more than most people did, but I do get why some people don't like it, and honestly, I do think there are chapters that could have been cut out. That being said, I liked them in there. It did just make the story longer than it needed to be. I love Xander's and Stevie. I just happen to like the other books better than this one. That being said, it is still a 5-star read for me. And in 4th place, we have Caught Up. I adore Kai and Miller and Max. But I do think there were some times where it felt like it was more focused on Miller's relationship with Max than it was Miller's relationship and Kai, and it is a romance book, and I do think the main focus should be on the couple. Max is Kai's son. Obviously, is going to be a very important part in his story, and Miller's relationship with Max is one of my favorite parts about this story, but I still wish it was a little more focused on just Miller and Kai. Real quick, I would like to say every single book in the series is a 5-star read for me, except for The Right Move, which is 4.5 stars, which is still very good. I'm kind of just using my negative thoughts towards these books to justify where I'm putting them in my ranking. And in 3rd place, we have In Her Own League. I am so glad that she gave us Monty's book. I loved him in Caught Up, and like I said earlier, I'm very glad that we got to see him get his happy ending. But like I said when I was talking about this book, I do kind of wish they just stayed in that mutual dislike phase a little bit longer, because I do think their reluctant allies and friends phase did last just a bit too long, and it did drag the slightest bit. And don't get me wrong, obviously I love that they love each other and I want to see them in love, but the tension when they mutually disliked each other was just top tier, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. And these next 2 books were the hardest to decide for me, but I had to do it, and in 2nd place we have Rewind It Back. I absolutely love Rio and Hallie. This book not being first kind of boils down to the fact that Rio's dad basically received 0 hate, because that's literally like the only negative feeling I have about this book. Honestly, Rio and Hallie as a couple and Isaiah and Kennedy as a couple come so close to me, but this ranking isn't just about the couple, it's about the book as a whole. So this book not being number 1 really boils down to the fact that I just didn't like that Hallie's mom was villainized significantly more than Rio's dad. And again, Hallie's mom absolutely did deserve to be villainized, but so did Rio's dad. But I still love Rio and Hallie, and Rio is easily a top 10, if not top 5, book boyfriend. And then in 1st place, to no surprise, we have Play Along. I literally have not a single negative thought about this book. Like I said, out of all the FMCs, I definitely relate to Kennedy the most, and Isaiah is literally my type of man, because yes, I am telling myself I have a type, and it's just him. Isaiah Rhodes is a top 3 book boyfriend, and in a way, he's 2nd place because 1st place is tied between Garrett Graham and Maverick Miller, but he's still behind 2 people, so like technically he's 3rd, but we're gonna just say 2nd place. I just love this man, and he yearned so hard, and he was so obsessed with Kennedy, and in like a healthy way, not a scary stalker way. No book in the series can compare. I would be shocked if Liz Tomforty can write a book couple that I love more. I just love everything about this book, so obviously it's number 1. And that is my ranking of the series, and guys, I gotta say, I'm really bummed that it's over. Luckily, we may see at least some of these characters again in Liz Tomforty's new series, Wilder Woods. On February 24th, she announced this new 4-book series set in Northern California following the Wilder siblings, which we are introduced to a couple of them in Rewind It Back. We're also going to be introduced to 3 new sports teams. Sadly, no hockey, but it's going to be basketball, baseball, and football, and that's actually going to be Liz Tomforty's first football romance. And the first book comes out on November 3rd of this year. Hopefully there's a few cameos from people from the Windy City series. But even if there's not going to be, I'm still very excited to read it. In case it's not obvious by me doing this video, I love the Windy City series. That was a lot. So I think I'm going to leave you guys with that. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram and my TikTok, which are in the description below for more bookish content. I hope you all loved In Her Own League as much as I did. Love you guys. Bye!